Welcome back, everyone, here to Recruiting Thursday on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Jack Ridenour here with you all, and today we have the pleasure of being joined by Greensburg Central Catholic football player and recent University of Maine football commit, Amari Mack. Amari, great to get you on the show today, my friend. First off, congrats on the big decision. How does it feel to make this choice?
Honestly, it feels great. It's kind of like how would you say, like a relaxer. I know there's still work to do. Obviously, just getting into college, it's not that easy, right? You still got to work and grind. But honestly, I can just relax for a little bit, take a little second, take a little breather. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely enjoy this. Definitely a time to enjoy this because you have really worked your way to, again, to the Division I level of football. Not many players get to say that they've done that. But I want to start with just what drew you to the University of Maine. So what was it that drew you to the football program?
Honestly, I've been communicating with offensive lineman coach from University of Maine, and we've been establishing a relationship last couple years or so. And honestly, he's just been really supportive, right, throughout this whole process, knowing that I've been recruited to other schools and all this stuff, and knowing how my recruitment, in the sense that I'm still like deciding, and it was like kind of late in the game as of you know doing my signing day and all that stuff. So I just think that UMaine, they really like supported me and cared for me in the sense that they knew it was a process, right? And it was a long process. So I feel like them being by my side the whole way since sophomore year, it was good knowing that.
Well, what were some other schools that were looking at you and that were on your radar?
So I was getting looked at by a couple PSAC schools. I was getting looked at by Ivy League, Cornell, UPenn, and then some non-Ivy, like D1 schools. I'd say like Youngstown State was up there, and a couple other schools like that.
So, in terms of just this whole process from start to finish, I mean, in terms of the recruiting and everything like that, you have to also factor in you had the COVID-19 pandemic to deal with and maneuver through and try and figure out how to get recruited through that. But what was this process like for you from start to finish?
Honestly, as I started getting recruited, it went all right. I had a really good breakout game my sophomore year, you know, and that's when I first started getting playing time. My freshman year, I didn't get as much playing time. And so I had a season-ending injury sophomore year, right, which set me back a couple of major steps. But after that, continuing through my junior and senior year, it was honestly just a grind. Um, I just had to lock in on my grades, lock in academics importantly, right, and lock in on the football field, make plays. And honestly, it's been up and down like a roller coaster type of feeling. But now that I've officially signed, it's kind of a great feeling.
It almost probably feels like you have a little bit of a weight lifted off your shoulders and you can kind of maybe let the shoulders drop a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah. A little relaxation. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that's a very important thing. And especially with just you having to deal with not only football, but like you said, school and having to, juggle that and finding the right time to do all of that. I mean, hey, being a student athlete is not the easiest thing in the world. And I think that if it was, I think everybody would do it. And there's a reason why not everybody does it. But Amari, I want to get into what's led you to becoming an athlete and what led you to starting football. So when did you start playing football and what drew you to the sport?
I started playing football when I was 6 years old, if I remember correctly. Um, my pops had taken me to a practice, and ever since then, like he just saw me like fell in love with the game, and he was right. I just been playing ever since. So that's basically how it went down, and I just never quit, never stopped.
So at what point during your football career do you kind of start to say, "Hey, you know what? I want to take this into college." When did that switch kind of flip for you?
I think always since I've played football, I didn't when I was younger, I hadn't played other sports. I was just mainly focused on football. Watching, the NFL, college football. I think that really set it off when I was, younger, that I wanted to play, in the league and play football in college. So I think when I was very young, starting into my football career, that's when I decided.
Well, growing up, I'm sure you probably had a lot of players that you idolized and looked up to. Who were some players that you idolized and to this day still look up to?
Oh, that's a good one. I started growing up. My father had put me on the Walter Payton, Barry Sanders. I was a running back when I was young, so I kind of grew up on, his class of running backs that were great. I'd say like more recent players, as a DB, I got to throw in Jalen Ramsey. That's really really good idol, good player. I'd say Darius Slay. He's one of my idols too, for sure.
Well, I'm glad you bring up the aspect of your position because I personally think defensive back is the hardest sport to play or the hardest position to play in all sports. I mean, you're basically playing the position backwards the whole time, essentially.
Right.
So for you, what is kind of maybe a trick or something that you've picked up along the way that you feel has allowed you to, again, excel on the football field and has really been a difference in your game?
I feel like one of my strong points in my defensive back playing is my physical strength. I feel like I'm pretty strong. I'm on the stronger side of my defensive backs, on that general spectrum. Um, Other than that, I feel like me paying attention to detail, like my technique, I really focus on my technique when it comes to DB because I know it's a very technical position, right? And honestly, other than that, it's just playmaking, having that sense of playmaking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's a position that again I've become very fascinated with just because I feel that there's not many positions in any sport where you're the whole time you're running backwards. You're very, very rarely running forward. And if you think about it, I mean, that you're usually in the disadvantage if you're back trotting. But I want to get into this past season because your team at Greensburg Central Catholic had a really, really good season, ultimately fell in the playoffs, but still finished out the season on a winning streak. What do you think was the biggest difference for your team from this past year to the previous year that you feel that your team really improved upon?
I feel like us going through my junior to senior year, I feel like we focused in on the mental aspect of the game. I feel like junior year, I'm not saying we didn't take anything serious, but we weren't taking it as serious as we were my senior year. I feel like our guys stepped up as seniors to kind of hone them in, make sure everybody's locked in as a group and not playing on an individual standpoint. And I feel like also with having our coach, get his feet wet on our team because, our coach is a relatively new coach. I feel like he understands our players more in the sense that he knew what to do going in from junior to senior year.
Well, I do want to stick with your junior season because, unfortunately, it ended in somewhat of some tragedy with having two of your assistant coaches pass away. And it was right before your playoff game. So I'm sure a really difficult week for your entire team and the entire program. What was that like for your team to have to go through? But also, how do you feel that your team came out of that difficult period better and really were able to rally around one another?
It was tough, right? So I remember practicing and then my head coach, Coach Marco, he just, got a phone call, walked off the field. And it was just a tragic moment. I just see everybody's, faces change from all like happy and excitement to, kind of like despair and like sorrow, right? And it was a rough week for us, right? In the sense that even though like as a DB, they weren't my position coaches, but like you still kind of felt that bond between our coaches that like we all were solid in a sense that, we could like look up to, each player and each coach. And, if you had somebody to talk to, like they'd be there for you, right? They are our coaches. They were like well respected. So I feel like, you know, it was tough, but, we obviously prospered. We obviously fell short in the playoffs that year too, but I feel like we kind of built on that. We had something that like tie ourselves in more.
Absolutely. And, everyone here at WSN, we're so sorry that you guys had to go through that because it's, again, such a challenging thing that nobody really ever plans for, right? I mean, especially in the middle of the season and the week of, a playoff game. But we'll get back into some more positive stuff, especially with you, like I said, wrapping up your career at GCC, now heading off to college. And again, playing at the Division I level. Not many players get to do that. But from your 4 years at GCC, what do you think that you'll take away that you've learned during your time as a Centurion and you'll apply quickly when you go off to Maine?
That's a really good question. I feel like number one thing is to bet on yourself. That's one of these things I've learned as I've gone to Central, transfer student, not really familiar with this area. I feel like betting on yourself is really something that I feel like everyone should do out there. If anyone's listening out there, there's one thing you need to take from it. It's you got to bet on yourself. There's no other way to it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic advice. And I think that any young athlete can definitely serve very well from that. And I think you're one that is definitely bet on himself. And there's a reason why, like I keep saying, you're going off and playing at the Division I level. And Amari, it's been great to have you join us for Recruiting Thursday. Before we let you run, just want to hear, what are you most excited for when you head off to college? Doesn't have to be football related. It can be anything. It can be getting away from home, getting away from mom and dad, being on your own, whatever it might be. What are you most excited for when you head off to college?
Honestly, to say this, like, it's still football related. Well, I guess you can put it in any aspect of, schooling, just football in general. I just think the competitive spirit of going to college is going to be good because, there's never an easy path in my eyes. I feel like there's always an aspect of a grinding. There's someone out there that there's competition where there's some people out there better than you and that like you always have to grind. I feel like in college, I'm going to still have to pursue that grind, pursue that, competitive spirit that I have and to take it to the next level. And, I'm just looking forward to grind. Keep it short and sweet. I'm just looking forward to grind.
Well, that's awesome, my friend. And again, we really wish you nothing but luck moving forward in the next stage of your football career. And thanks so much for stopping by today.
Thank you.
That's University of Maine football commit Amari Mack. Folks, thanks as always for joining us yet again for another wonderful edition of Recruiting Thursday right here and only on the Westmoreland Sports Network.